Well, joining me live is Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan. Welcome to the program. Look, the pandemic is obviously over, so why are these pandemic visas being granted?
It's a very good question, Sharri, and I think while you and all your listeners know that the pandemic is over, I wonder whether Anthony Albanese and his government do, because this is quite outstanding that they've issued more COVID visas since the pandemic than what were issued when the border was closed. And I think what it really demonstrates is, once again, Labor has no plan when it comes to immigration. They always make a mess of immigration. And what they want, I think in their heart of hearts, is this big Australia by stealth. And it just seems this is another way that Labor are pursuing their big Australia agenda.
Well, they've been quite open about having higher levels of immigration. The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, says this is in part to make up for the shortfall that happened under the COVID era. The issue, though, is that at the same time, the government admits that there is a housing crisis. So, what sort of pressure are the higher levels of immigration putting on, in particularly, the rental market?
Enormous. Remember, there's 1.5 million people additionally heading our way over 5 years. And there is already a housing shortage. There is already a rental crisis. There's already issues with our public hospitals with getting access to doctors. There's already growing issues when it comes to congestion. And there's growing pressure on the natural environment. So all these things are just being added to with this 1.5 million. And now we find out this use of the COVID pandemic visa, this approach to a big Australia. And the government needs to come clean with the Australian people, because before the last election, they didn't say they were going to pursue a big Australia policy, but now that's what they're doing. And they use COVID as some sort of excuse. But you've got to remember, it's like you're driving a car and you come to roadworks and you've got to slow down to 20 kilometres an hour. You do that for a period of time. You then don't get to your destination by doing 200 kilometres an hour to make up for it. What you do is you have a very gradual, planned approach to making sure that everything you do is planned along with the housing crisis, the rental crisis, the issue of congestion. All those things need to be taken into account. Labor haven't worried about that. They've just said, big Australia is what we want, and that's what we're going to pursue.
Now, very quickly, we're almost out of time, Dan Tehan, but a former Melbourne schoolgirl turned jihadi bride has had her citizenship restored, Australian citizenship restored by the High Court. Why would they do this?
Well, they've done it because there was a decision which was made by the courts a few months ago. Now, what we need to do, and do very quickly, and I said this at the time, is introduce new legislation so that the government, when it makes a decision to strip someone of their citizenship, that is lawful. Now, what we've once again seen is the government just sit on its hands and do nothing. And now we've got this situation which has occurred. We just need to have a piece of legislation introduced to the Parliament so we can deal with this. But the government hasn't acted, so we get someone who was a jihadi bride, who was a supporter of ISIS, now having their citizenship restored. It's wrong, and once again, it's the government not acting quickly.
All right, Dan Tehan, we're out of time, but thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining me tonight.